Persimmon grove, which is absolutely my favorite grove on the property. I fell in love with these plants in California. They are the last fruit of the season. You can harvest them around Thanksgiving time.
And what fruit is this?
This is the persimmon.
Okay.
And behind us, we have a Native American, we're in Alabama, native persimmon. These are the little tiny ones that people know. They're like tricks, that's before the frost, they're super tart. So a lot of people have a childhood story about being tricked to eat this very tart fruit.
And making their mouth pucker up.
Absolutely. And so after the frost, they're a nice, sweet, fleshy fruit with just a little bit of fruit in a big pit. There's also folklore. If you open the seed up, there's a knife, a fork, or a spoon that will predict the weather for that year.
I remember that from
sometimes
years
that's
ago.
Fun.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of the Farmer's Almanac.
And so
these
here,
are Asian persimmons. And there are two different varieties. And what growers do is they take a native rootstock and they cut on and prune in an Asian fruit that has a very big fruit and very small seeds. These are delicious at any stage for me. I can eat them almost unripe once they get a beautiful orange color, and you can let them vine ripen to a very soft,
super sweet,
delicious fruit, and they almost turn into a jelly almost. And so the last fruit of the fall season, and all the leaves will start falling off, and you'll still have these gorgeous orange fruits. The deer love them. They'll even climb up through the property and eat them here.
I remember when you planted these trees and how little they were.
They were so tiny.
And look at them. Oh my gosh, their trunks are so much bigger.
And planting trees gives us hope. We know that they're for the future. They're for our children.
Yep.
They're for our aging.
Do you prune these? Did you prune these at all?
I do some pruning, but I'm a minimal pruner. So I have found I can prune almost any season except right before freezes.
Yeah.
And so this year, I will go ahead and start pruning these up to the place that they may not have a fruit on them. Because what will happen is if you do not prune, the fruits weigh so heavy and they'll break the branches. So even though we may not be the best pruners, I just do a little bit of minimal pruning.
So does that make the branch thicker? The pruning?
The pruning doesn't make it makes
over a year or two. Will it makes the branches stronger and thicker or not?
I mean, all trees are going to get thicker over time.
Yeah.
But what we want one simple pruning trick is to start pruning the uprights.
Okay.
Because you don't want fruits growing upright. So that's a very simple, and you want enough airflow.
Okay.
So that the fruits can thrive and be more resistant to pests
and if
insects.
you prune it, there's less fruit, so it doesn't weigh the branch down.
Yes, that's the main thing for me. Is that the arms of the trees will break
if you have too
laden.
much.
So you will naturally learn that you have to prune even though it may not be your desire.
Yep.
So these are actually two different varieties. And what I've done, again, with the mulching system, when you're trying to grow in an urban area that may have grass or weeds, I have found installing borders. This is a plastic border. I'm also fond of metal borders. And then again, layering, weeding, getting your base clear, immediately putting down layers of cardboard and a lot of mulch allows you to create a property that's going to have more aesthetic value. And if we're in neighborhoods, we want things to be a little bit pretty,
right?
So that we're not such the oddballs with these crazy.
And then you put your little table and chairs here. It makes it look so
the umbrella and
inviting.
Right.
Yep.
And hey, so we're checking out the bees on the property. I've had this beehive for probably 5 or 6 years now. They're Minnesota hygienics. They're a very gentle and kind bee to have on the property. As a beginning beekeeper, like many people, I over-intervened with the bees. And I opened the box a lot, then I had a lot of mite problems, and I was having to use a lot of lime to keep down beetles. And over the last few years, I want the bees to be here as pollinators. I love to look at them. They're helping the fruit and the flowers really have a beautiful Garden of Eden here. And
A farm helper?
Stop.
It's okay.
Stop. Okay, you can edit it out. So I have moved sequentially to a more hands-off approach with my bees. There is a whole category of beekeeping called natural beekeeping, and my bees thrive. They are so much healthier without my interventions. The bees know how to live. They evolve. Their hives grow and shrink based on food, and I don't believe we know how to take care of bees better than bees know how to take care of bees. So one year I stopped feeding the sugar water that I was doing for the bees, and I replaced that with honey water. The next year I froze a couple of frames in my freezer, and when I felt like they really needed food during the hard winter, I would exchange a old frame for one full of honey.
Oh, wow.
So I was feeding them their honey back.
Their own honey.
Yes. And now for the last 2 years, I have done nothing for the bees. I let them swarm when they want to swarm. I put out boxes if they want to live on the property. And I have not lost these hives, and I was consistently losing hives because I was over intervening.
Ah.
This is the second set of bees on my property, and the queen for this bee set is called Mite Baller. And she has evolved with a jaw that can crack the mites, which are one of the biggest invaders, parasites for the bee populations here. Compared to the Mississippi hygienics that are very kind and gentle bees, many beekeepers say these are good workers. They will get out 5 degrees earlier on cold days and start foraging. And during swarm time, I'm actually afraid of these bees. I have a friend that actually had his tested to make sure it wasn't an African bee, because they are quite aggressive at times. So this area is grown up with weeds because I'm a little less comfortable tending this area. However, I give them their space. I ask people not to come too closely, and they are hard workers. So they're doing exactly their job, gathering pollen, pollinating our fruits so that we can have crops.
Do you ever get honey out of either one of these 2 hives that we've just visited?
I can,
for yourself?
For myself. I can, and I would definitely harvest the Minnesota hygienics. I don't want to harvest these. Other people can come and harvest them. That's fine with me. I'm just not comfortable because I'm such a novice beekeeper, and the truth is I really want pollinators on my property.
Yep.
And I also like to support my local beekeepers, and I just will often buy their honey or their novelty honeys like hot honeys or spiced honeys, and also give back to my community financially. The one thing that's really cool that you'll see next to the beehive is a lotus pond. And the strategy with this is the bees can come to the lotus pond and drink water. Bees need a lot of water. Otherwise, they have to fly down to my creek. So a friend of mine, another beekeeper, gave me a lotus pond, and I keep it filled with lotuses, hyacinth, guppies or goldfish or mosquito fish. I set the 5-gallon bucket of water out overnight so I don't get chlorine into the system. And then they're so conveniently located that they can do more pollination because they have something to drink. The first year I did beekeeping, I literally kept myself exhausted putting water bottles on the beehives. That's senseless use of energy. So permaculture is a conservation of energy system.
Yep.
We're conserving energy.
Do you have any issues with mosquitoes in that pond, or do the fish eat the mosquitoes?
The mosquito fish eat the mosquitoes. That's the first
Cool.
ones I installed. I've been told the guppies eat mosquitoes, so I've tried those this year. So far I haven't had any issues with the mosquitoes because I've had mosquito eating fish. I don't know that the goldfish will,
Yeah.
but
So the fish are kind of small in there.
They're super teeny tiny.
Ah.
Yeah.
And you keep looking and they're alive and you don't have any issues.
I may have to restock the guppies.
Yeah.
Because I saw them the first couple of weeks and now I don't see them. Although my veterinarian friend told me I really need to come out at night with a flashlight because they very well may be hiding.
Ah,
And
okay.
that's another way to make sure they're there.
Okay. Go ahead.
This is an elderberry tree.
It is huge.
It's huge. It's an exceptional specimen. When gardeners have trees for sale, one method of cultivating trees is to take two different varieties and hybridize them for a particular feature, like a beautiful bloom with good resiliency. The other method that gardener propagators and nursery owners do is they do a select tree. So they will go out into nature and find a fine specimen and then they will propagate that specimen. This elderberry is a select from nature variety that I bought at a beautiful shop in Calera called Petals from the Past. It concentrates on trees that do well in our southern climates. It is the elderberry that people use as immune support. It's in the flowering stage now. You can actually take the flowers and ferment them into like a lemonade drink that's a little fizzy called sop. The stems will become magenta and then we will have gorgeous purple berries. Those berries can be tinctured up, they can be made into syrups, and the birds love them. So this tree is really, if you don't get out of here and harvest them, absolutely the birds will come and eat all of them.
So that's what happens at my house is the
Yes.
birds get everything.
That's
So
right.
can you harvest them before the birds get them and still get a very good fruit, or?
I think you just have to be a diligent harvester. I mean, you and I work a lot, and
Yeah.
so we have to have somebody that's willing to partner with you and perhaps come and consistently be out and picking the ripe berries.
Yeah, yep. So you even have birds that will come decimate this whole bush if
Absolutely.
you don't go after the berries.
The other thing I'm trying experimentally, and I think it's working, elderberries like to be near water source. So this is getting closer and closer to my spring level. So they're very happy in a ravine or near creekside. Also, I'm underplanting with strawberries. And like I
Oh.
mentioned before, I have a ring that I put to keep the weeds out. And the strawberries also like water level. So I'm trying, and they don't like too much hot sun in the summer. So these are, they're bare during the winter, and then they come out during the spring, and the strawberries are getting ripe under them while we still have some sun strike.
Wow.
And so I'm really exploring that combination of, and I also have interplanted with garlic because that's a good companion plant for both the elder that can get aphids and for the strawberries.
Do you have strawberries under this one?
I do.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a steep hill. We see a lot of native strawberries, so
Oh,
we
yeah.
know that this is going to be a good area for strawberries because our native strawberries grow.
Yep.
Permaculture is about
Oh, there's several here. I see them. Yep.
Permaculture is about observation and measured response. So if we look where something's growing, like the strawberries, we should consider planting strawberries. If we see the persimmons are growing somewhere, other persimmons, hybrid, even these, are gonna also do better.
Yep.
This is not.
So you have the native persimmon, and so that's easier to grow the non-native persimmons, just like the strawberries. Oh, I see.
Exactly.
And you've got a bed with a
Yes.
green.
So there's a liner.
Yep.
This has not been worked at all this year. So we
Okay.
have blackberries and things that need pulled out. But the mulching system
Yes.
and cardboard has kept a lot of weeds down.
And there's strawberries in there.
And there are strawberries in here. And this is really, they're gonna make it under here.
Even though it's not real sunny under here.
Yes. They're gonna make it.
Very good.